Joe, if I get you, you're uniquely placed here as having worked at both the MTA and Air Malta. And over the years, you've no doubt seen crises of varying magnitude. None, I'm sure, as devastating as this pandemic. In your view, how should hotels and other suppliers face the current crisis? And what changes do you see in the customer journey to purchase? What do you think needs to be done differently to attract business?
Good. So, good morning, everyone. Crisis. Yeah, tourism. I think it's normal when you work in tourism to face crisis. It is an industry which is immediately affected by any changes, any crisis, any things which are out of the norm. But we also know when we work in tourism that the industry is resilient and it always comes back. The question is, when will it come back, and and how will it come back? In which form will it come back? One thing that we need to accept or we need to understand is that crisis will bring change. So let us not think that what we did so successfully until last February or March, we can do again now come July, August, and it will give us the same results we had before. I think one change that we need to see and we need to accept is that I would say for the last years, there was, I would call it a carefree attitude to book your holidays. It was so easy to book a holiday, flights were cheap. You can decide, we go on holiday, you just go on the internet, you book your hotel, you book your flights, and you're done. Probably planning a Sunday picnic with the family took even longer planning time. Today, I think it's not so easy, and not so easy, not because the platforms are not there, it's because people have hesitation. Before, they had no hesitation. Once you decided you had the time and the money, you just went ahead and booked your holiday. Now there's hesitation. I would say there's probably a very strong emotional hesitation. Emotional, do I need this holiday? Does it fall into what people are calling this non-essential travel? Is it safe for me to travel? Is it safe for me to take my children with me? I mean, both Carlo and Claire mentioned there's an absence of families. Families are traveling, but they're traveling with the car. They're getting into the car in Europe, in Germany, or in France, getting and traveling 200-300 kilometers away and going for a break with their family. But getting the family onto a plane, getting the family to a hotel, it's not so easy because there's a barrier that you need to overcome. You need to get the confidence that it's the right thing to do. Then I would say there's also the financial uncertainty. I mean, many people have suffered some financial loss to their earnings. They've had less earnings in the last months, either because they were furloughed or they lost on bonuses or commissions, or some of them even have the fear of what the future might bring. I mean, people talk about the second pandemic. So if I've managed to survive the first few months, will I survive the next one? So I would say when we promote our hotel, our destination, there are these two major concerns, the emotional concern and the financial concern that we have to address. Claire was very clear when she mentioned protocols. Protocols are important, and I think people are asking what are the hotels doing to safeguard the health of the hotel, of the staff, of the guests. And I would say why in the past most of the cleaning and sanitizing was done, I would say, away from the eyes of the guest. I would even say now it's good to do it in front of the guests. Why? Because the guest needs to know. I mean, it's not knowing that it's done, it's actually seeing that it is done. Then I think we also need to look at the flexibility of booking. Most properties, and Claire can tell us, are far away from a full occupancy. So give people the flexibility of booking so they can cancel should something happen, some news which makes them more uncomfortable to travel. Of course, the flexibility in booking also depends on the platforms you use. There are certain platforms, for example, booking.com, which is popular for everyone to book their hotels, but it is notorious for the amount of last-minute cancellations, for the amount of no-shows, mainly based on its type of booking, where it actually encourages you to secure your hotel and you pay later. So people feel very comfortable in securing their hotel and paying later. I believe Booking.com in the past had about 40% globally of no-shows or last-minute cancellations. At the other extreme, then you have the classical tour operator, where bookings tend to be, I would say, a bit more secure, less cancellations. And if I can advise anyone, I would say that the classical tour operator and the travel agent always have a resurgence in demand after any crisis. After a crisis with the financial crisis, even when Thomas Cook went bust last October, November, you might think that people will shy away from tour operators. Actually, it gave travel agents a resurgence in demand in many, many countries. And I would say travel agents would, in a situation like this, where you need a face and a name to talk to, should you need to cancel or change your travel plans, I would say they do have a USP that many other direct booking channels, online booking channels, don't have. And then it's also an opportunity to push your own hotel website. I mean, it's where you talk to people, where you can give all the flexibility people want, where you can command the best revenue for your hotel. And any client you get over your hotel website is your client, and he will remain your client all the time, because it's not like a booking that comes through a platform, through an operator, and you only know a family name and the date of arrival and the date of departure. What we can see probably in the future, or rather now, is a very short booking journey. The time between the day you book your flight and the day you take your flight are going to be much shorter, because people will leave it till the very last minute to book, should anything happen that might change their travel plans. This does not mean that people will not be planning. I would say, yes, people are planning, and Carlos said searches in the UK for Malta are at an all-time high, because people have this lust for holidays, people want to travel. So the planning period will be, I would say, quite long, but while before we used to have a short planning period and the long period between the date of booking and the date of travel, we will now have a long planning period, but between your date of booking and the date of travel, you only have a few days. And this is reflected even when you speak to tour operators. They tell you we have a lot of inquiries, we have a lot of interest, but bookings are only slowly coming in. It's because people need to have the confidence that, yes, they can travel. And I would say confidence is probably the most important factor. Claire mentioned, and I agree with her 100%, price is not the determinant. Price, yes, could maybe have moved some business. Price could have moved business in the past, but this is not the past. This is a new time that we're facing, and let's be realistic. If we, as Malta, want to play with the price, competing destinations can play much better with the price. Our costs are what they are. Our costs are not as cheap as some of the North African competitors. So if we play with the price, ultimately we're only harming ourselves, because they can always go lower than us. And when you push your price down to a certain level, it's easy, extremely easy, but it's difficult to push the price up again. Let's be realistic. It is not a short-term gain we want a sustainable long-term development. And sustainable long-term development means understanding our guests, getting their trust, getting their confidence, and moving on.
Okay, thank you. Joe, if I can turn to you. Yesterday, Tony Zara, chairman of the Hotels and Restaurant Association, said hoteliers are basing their reopening plans on airline seating capacity. You know, fair enough, a point you touched on earlier on. And he said, and I quote, seat capacity was down from last year to 27% this month, meaning July, 43% in August, 50% in September, and is forecast to remain at that level between October and March. The CEO of Malta Air, Dermot O'Connell, and apologies if I mispronounce his name, says, and I quote, there's a pent-up demand for travel in July and August, but it'll be a rough winter. Demand has taken a big hit, and it will take a bit of time to restore that. Both say essentially the same thing. As a former airline man, what is your take on the situation? What can the airlines do and or the destination to stimulate demand? Now, I mean, I was reading last night, for instance, Emirates have just introduced what I thought was a bit bizarre insurance. If you travel with them, they'll cover your, if you catch COVID on their flights, they'll cover your hotel bills, quarantine bills, hospital bills, and in the event of your death, they'll cover your funeral bills. I mean, that's pretty drastic. But what's your take on all this?
It doesn't inspire confidence, does it?
This is the opposite.
Which airline was that, Terence?
Emirates.
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 Okay.
I mean, when it comes to airline capacity, yeah, okay, people tell you it's easy for airlines to put more flights in the air. Yeah, and it is easy, but each hour flown comes at a high cost, at a very high cost. So airlines are rather careful about the number of flights they fly, the number of seats they float, because when they do not at least cover their variable costs, their direct costs of operating that flight, it makes more sense to keep the aircraft on the ground. And in many cases at the moment in time, for many airlines, it is less costly not to fly than to fly. They are only flying because it is their commitment to stimulate demand, to stimulate business, to give confidence to the industry, to try to regenerate the industry. I mean, at the end of the day, airlines are meant to fly, aircraft are meant to fly, so having aircraft parked, like we've seen in the last few months, is no one's joy. However, one thing we have to probably be careful, and I've seen this, I think, as a headline of an article in an interview with Alan Arrigo, where he said that reopening is not recovery. And many people have mistaken the fact that we've reopened is that we have recovered. And I think there are totally two different things. Reopening is possibly the first step towards a recovery, but we all know that there are many things that have to come into play to make a recovery real, to make a recovery happen. There is the willingness that I want to travel, and there is the ability that I want to travel. And what the CEO of Malta Air is that there is pent-up demand. I agree, but there is, yes, pent-up demand. But again, pent-up demand is not a sale. Pent-up demand is your wish, your desire to do something, but do I have the ability to do it? I have the willingness to travel. I have the willingness to get onto a plane or to go on holiday. But do I have the ability? Do I have, and again, I go through the emotional ability and the financial ability. There are two different things, and to get people to travel will be a long process, but it has to be a sustained process from us, the airlines and the industry, to keep showing people that yes, there is safety in travel, there is no risk, there are no problems. So the worst we can do is the start-stop attitude. Once we reopened, let's try to keep open, because opening and closing sends the wrong signals in the market. Winter, yes, winter will always be a problem. Winter was always a problem, even in the best of times, let alone now. And especially this year, I don't think we're going to see many groups coming over in winter, because social distancing in groups don't really go well together. We're not going to see much MICE business, because again, it doesn't go well together. We're not going to see many elderly traveling, because they are the vulnerable and they're going to be staying at home. And these are probably the segments which would keep us busy in a normal winter, because in a normal winter, you have less people coming for normal vacations, for regular sun and sea. You have some culture-driven people, but many of these do travel in groups. So we come back to the same situation. No groups are traveling in winter. Before we say rather, what can we do for winter? I would say we need to understand the concerns why winter will be more difficult this year. People fear the hype that the media is talking about, the second wave coming in winter. There is no insurance. I mean, and I do understand Emirates' angle, because many insurances are not offering you cover for COVID-19 now. Many employers don't give you sick leave to quarantine, because now you know about it. Last March, you didn't know about it, but now you know about it. There's a threat of unemployment. If it comes again, do I still have a job? There's a threat of businesses closing down. So all of these are making people very, very, very uneasy. So again, I will call for flexibility. I will call for any measures that can be done to ensure that airline capacity, at least from key routes, is guaranteed. We need to be flexible, all of us, airlines, hotels, whatever it is, for change requests. Let's not make changes complicated for people. Let us also keep in mind that there are people who booked trips for May and for June and for April who are still waiting for their refunds. So will they trust us again with their deposits? So let's make change request bookings as flexible as possible. Let us give people peace of mind. Let us show them that there are less contact points, human contact points, because we tend to fear that human contact points give us the virus. Our marketing, I would say, has to change from an image building type of marketing to a reassurance type of marketing. From a hard sell based on price to, I would say, an emotional sell. We have to understand that the planning process is going to be long. So we need to be engaging with our clients, our potential clients, all the time, because we don't know at which point they will book, or they will book very late, but their planning is going to be quite a long one. So we need to be active in the market. We need to engage. We need to use social media. We need to use our website. We need to use CRM. We need to use classical advertising, because people are out there. They want to travel, but we need to be present to engage with them and get them to travel to us as and when they decide to.